Daniel's 70 weeks. For the next step in our study of eschatology, we will not go to the revelation of Jesus Christ at the end of the Bible. Instead, we will go back to the Old Testament book of Daniel. This is a drawing I put together to describe the prophecy I want to lift out of Daniel chapter 9. And you notice this bottom bar here? I have 490 years, referencing Daniel 9. Well, there's 490 years prophesied upon Israel. And the start of that countdown, if you will, to get from 0 years to 490 years, or the other way around, maybe 490 years counting down to 0. The first 69 weeks, or 483 years, started in Nehemiah chapter 2, when the command went forth to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. Remember, Judah and Israel had been captured and dragged away, and Jerusalem was virtually destroyed. So in Nehemiah chapter 2, there's a command that's given by the king to allow the Jews to go back and rebuild the walls and temple in Jerusalem. That's when this whole countdown of Daniel's prophecy starts. And in that countdown, 483 years reel off without stop. One of the things we find out in the prophecy itself is that there will be a time when Messiah, the Prince, is cut off. That's a reference to what Jesus did on the cross. So from Nehemiah chapter 2 to the time Jesus dies on the cross is 483 years, or 69 weeks. We live right here in this block here. This is a time where we live where that countdown is paused. The next thing that happens then is when Jesus comes back for his church at the Rapture, we're taken away, all the believers are taken away, and the countdown that started back here resumes into what is Daniel's 70th week, or the Great Tribulation. I'll give you more details on this in just a moment. When the book of Daniel opens, the northern kingdom of Israel was already in captivity, and the deportation of the people of Judah had begun. Because of their sin and disobedience, both Israel and Judah would be taken captive by their enemies. The northern kingdom, that'd be the 10 northern tribes of Israel, fell first, and the people were carried away by the Assyrians, never to return. To this day, the 10 tribes of the northern kingdom are effectively lost in history. There are lots of legends around the 10 northern tribes that went into the Assyrian captivity. One legend says that the 10 tribes migrated to Europe. The Danube River, they say, got its name from the tribe of Dan. Another legend says that the tribes migrated all the way to England, and that all Anglo-Saxons today are actually Jews. This is a teaching of the heretical British Israelism. What is most likely is that they simply assimilated into the Assyrian culture, intermarried, and chose to never go back. The southern kingdom, known as Judah, that's the tribes of Judah and Benjamin, survived a few years longer, but were eventually taken into captivity, this time by the Babylonians. When Daniel opens, we find the prophet Daniel is a young man in a strange land with some notable friends named Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Daniel is young, but he is wholly and seriously dedicated to the Lord of his forefathers. He is blessed by God in this strange land and rises to be what we might call the prime minister of Babylon. When the Babylonians were conquered by the Persians, Daniel remained under the care and blessing of God and retained his lofty political position. Daniel was aware of Jeremiah's prophecy that Judah would go into captivity for 70 years. Bear in mind that God did not bring judgment on his people for no reason, and certainly not without warning. Jeremiah 25:8, Therefore, thus says the Lord of hosts, because you have not obeyed my words, behold, I will send for all the tribes of the north, declares the Lord, and for Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, my servant, and I will bring them against this land and its inhabitants, and against all these surrounding nations. I will devote them to destruction, and make them a horror, a hissing, and an everlasting desolation. Moreover, I will banish from them the voice of mirth and the voice of gladness, the voice of the bridegroom and the voice of the bride, the grinding of the millstones and the light of the lamp. This whole land shall become a ruin and a waste, and these nations shall serve the king of Babylon 70 years. That's the prophecy that Jeremiah knew about. Why captivity? Why not just punish them where they were? There are certainly many ways to do that. Because Israel became greedy and had ceased leaving the ground rest every 7th year as God commanded. 2 Chronicles 36:20, he took into exile in Babylon those who had escaped from the sword, and they became servants to him and to his sons until the establishment of the kingdom of Persia. To fulfill the word of the Lord by the mouth of Jeremiah, until the land had enjoyed its Sabbaths. All the days that it lay desolate, it kept Sabbath, to fulfill 70 years. Israel had violated 70 Sabbath rest years for the land, so that would form the basis for their exile to Babylon. 1 year of captivity for every Sabbath rest that they missed. Jeremiah 29:8, for thus says the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, do not let your prophets who are in your midst and your diviners deceive you, and do not listen to the dreams which they dream. For they prophesy falsely to you in my name. I have not sent them, declares the Lord. For thus says the Lord, when the 70 years have been completed for Babylon, I will visit you and fulfill my good word to you to bring you back to this place. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for calamity, to give you a future and a hope. Since Daniel knew of Jeremiah's prophecy, and since he was amongst one of the deportations to Babylon, he could do the math and know that the time left in his captivity was short. Points to ponder. When the book of Daniel opens, the northern kingdom of Israel was already in captivity. The southern kingdom, Judah, the tribes of Judah and Benjamin, survived a few years longer, but were eventually taken into captivity. The prophet Daniel was a young man in a strange land with some notable friends named Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. This class, and indeed the entire school, is dedicated to helping others see that God is bigger than we think and better than we know. To get to the next video, make a note of the class number for this recording, then search for the next one. Here's a sample. If this video is number L01.1, then the next one is L01.2. And remember to like and subscribe on YouTube and follow on Rumble.